Microsoft 365 OneNote.
My name is Marielle Myers. I teach at Sulphur High 9th grade campus, and my subjects are engineering and physical science.
My name is Holly Thompson, and I teach biology at Westlake High School.
We would be honored if you would join us.
And here we go.
The first part of this webinar is meant to give an example of how OneNote could be set up and used to give instruction in your classroom. Before we get to a lesson, let me show you how I'm setting up my notebook for the upcoming year. I've been wanting to use OneNote for quite some time, and setting it up was actually much simpler than I thought it was going to be. I have found that it is easiest to work in the desktop version of OneNote instead of the online version of OneNote. It's just faster and easier to navigate, and there are also some features that are in the desktop version that are not in the online version. Right now you can see that I am in my master notebook. I have my master notebook organized by unit, and I'll probably add some more sections as the year goes on. You can actually organize your notebook any way you like it, and with as many sections, pages, and subpages as you need for your classroom. One of the features that I really like about OneNote is how easy it is to move back and forth between different notebooks and to move content between them. I can easily toggle between my class notebook and my master notebook, and that makes things very convenient. This is my class notebook for the upcoming year, so let me just briefly walk you through the sections that it comes with. The first and a very useful part of the class notebook is the collaboration space. I have my collaboration space organized by class period so that each class has their own space. You can even organize it further by having groups within each class if you wanted to. To keep the collaboration space organized and to avoid confusion between students, it's a good idea to assign each of your students an identifier. I plan on using a numbering system for my students so that each student knows to type only in their space. The next area is the content area. This is where you would keep anything that you want the students to have access to but not necessarily interact with. Some examples of what might go in this area are your syllabus, vocabulary, study guides, textbooks, how-to documents, and that sort of thing. The third area is the teacher-only section, which is pretty self-explanatory. The students will not even see that this section is there. This section is where you would keep things that you don't want the students to see or that maybe you're holding to distribute to the students in the future. The final section is the student section. You may find it helpful to set up a student when you're making your lessons to test your lessons on the kinds of devices they'll be using. Some features look great on one device but don't necessarily work on another device. You can set up another teacher as a student, or what I have done here is just to set up my son as a student. After you've added a student to your class, you can distribute pages to them, and then you can test everything and make sure it works. Some of the concerns that I had about using OneNote in class were how to have classroom discussions, how to give collaborative assignments, how to have students give each other feedback. How do you do these things in a virtual setting? So what I did here was try to convert one of our current biology lessons into a lesson that is delivered using OneNote. You can use OneNote in conjunction with a traditional face-to-face lesson, and you can also use it in conjunction with other online tools. For this webinar, I tried to stay entirely within the OneNote app. I'm going to be using one of the current biology lessons in our curriculum, and this is what the student activity sheet normally looks like. The simplest and most basic way to take a worksheet or a lesson and make it digital is to copy and paste it into OneNote as a PDF. And then if you set it to the background, the students can actually type right on that document. So here's what I decided to do. I decided to use that student activity sheet as my template, and I added some content to it and some links to make that student activity sheet more conducive to learning in a virtual environment. What I would like to do now is show you how this lesson would look from a student perspective. So I'm going to run through this lesson quickly on an iPad. I did also test this on an Android phone just to make sure that it worked across different devices. So this is lesson 1 of Unit 1. It is our launch for our first unit of biology. And it starts with the students having to watch a video clip. So the only change that I made at this point was to provide a link to the video from this actual document, which is right here. If it were a YouTube video or some of the other video formats, you can actually embed the video onto the document itself so the students don't actually have to leave the document. But this video is from pbs.org and does not have an embed option. The other thing that I added was a transcript of the video right here for my students with accommodations. And I put a hyperlink so that they can go directly to that document. And you can see it is right there. And a very cool feature of OneNote is that it has Immersive Reader built in. So not only do they have this transcript, if you hit View, you can actually click on Immersive Reader, and so that transcript can be read to them. And this takes a second to open.
Hunting the nightmare bacteria. Narrate.
There are some different options within Immersive Reader as well, as far as voice selection and voice speed. So a good way to accommodate different students in your classroom. After the students watch this video, they are supposed to keep track of some of the important events that they watched and some questions that they might have, and so they can actually type on this document. Since every student has their own document, they can type right on it. Like that. And then the students, this where the collaboration comes in, is the students are supposed to share some of their questions and share some of those important events with the class. And they're going to do this in the collaboration space. I have a document set up for them to do that. I provided a hyperlink for them to get to that document straight from this lesson so that navigation is a little bit easier. And you can see that document is right there. I would have already assigned each student in my class a number so that they know exactly where they're supposed to type their responses on this document. That way nobody's trying to type in the same line at the same time. If you look on the right hand side, you can see the little T there. That is just to show the author of that particular statement. That is a feature that can be turned off in the view settings if you don't want that there. The next thing the students are supposed to do in class, if we were doing this in a a face-to-face lesson is together as a class we would put these events, these important events, in order. So in order to give everybody a chance to do this, if we were not together in a face-to-face setting, I have set up I have put all the main events onto a document here, and want the students to actually go through and put those events in order. So they would fill it out. I have 1 and 2 already done just earlier. So Addie was cut on the playground as number 1. She went to the hospital as number 2, and they would put these events in order. This particular document was a good example of why it's important to test your lesson out on the kinds of devices that your student will use, because this is not my first idea for this lesson. I'll show you my first idea for this activity was to have this drag and drop, where they had to actually, these boxes, drag and drop them into the correct order, which looked really, it worked really well on the iPad and it worked well on the PC. But when I tested it on a phone, it was very buggy and it was hard to move those boxes around. And I was afraid this would cause too much frustration with my students. So I opted to redo the lesson in this format, which accomplishes the same thing, but is much simpler and worked just fine on a phone. The next thing that we would do in class is talk about the different kinds of bacteria that Addie had, and this is a good example of how you can embed some direct instruction into your lesson. I did this in PowerPoint. I just did some slides and added audio to the slides so they can play these slides from this document.
Before you go on to making your models, let's take a minute to organize what we know about the kinds of bacteria that Addie came in contact with.
And they can go through these slides on their own and replay anything they need to replay. If it turns out they can't play these PowerPoints, if this proves to be a problem playing the PowerPoint like on their phone or something like that, you can also insert a PowerPoint as a printout, and then you could just add some audio files on the side in the document. So there's multiple ways that you could go about this. Okay, the next thing that the students are supposed to do is draw a model of what they think is happening so far, and this is their very first experience drawing a model. So I have provided them with a hyperlink to some modeling examples just for some supplementary instruction that just shows some examples of models. Let me go up to the top. So the students can go through and look at some examples of models just to kind of get their juices flowing a little bit. This particular model that you see on the screen right here, I decided to try to draw a model on the phone with a little 5-inch screen, which was tricky but not impossible. So the students could do that. I did that with a stylus. It was a little easier with a stylus than your finger. So the students can do that if they want to. If that proves to be challenging, they can also just draw their model on a sheet of paper and upload it that way. And we want to compare all our models. We want to share our models with the rest of the class. So what we're going to do for number 5 is where it says share your models in the collaboration space. I have a document set up there for that, but I also have a hyperlink. I love hyperlinks. Going to that document, and you can see I already have that first model uploaded into the document. I think I just did that using a screenshot. Now, if they did it on a sheet of paper instead, it's very easy to put the model into the chart. They would just click on their space and they would hit insert. And you see up there at the very top, it has table, pictures, camera, all that. So if it was on their camera roll, they could just insert it that way from pictures. But they can also use the camera within the app. So if I hit camera and I want to take a picture of my beautiful model here, this is going to go directly into that collaborative document. So very cool. And then I would have my students comment on each other's model. And you can see at the very top, I have a link to a document about accountable talk. It's something you definitely want to teach your students to do so that they're keeping everything positive. And however, you can say each student has to comment on at least 2 other models, or you could say this student has to comment on this student's model. You could be very precise or leave it open-ended, just depending on your class and your situation, however you want to structure that activity. Down at the bottom of this document, I have a space where the students can record. After looking at the models, they can record the similarities and differences that they see between the models. Number 6 is updating our incremental modeling tracker, or IMT, and I have a hyperlink for that as well, taking them to that document. So this is the IMT for this lesson that I just put in here as a PDF, and I set it to the background so that students can type on it. And I've already kind of been playing around here, but they can click anywhere on this document and type an answer. They can also insert pictures, and another good feature for accommodating students is that they can also insert audio. So if they don't want to type or they don't want to write, they can actually insert an audio file instead, and that is just done in insert, sorry. Click somewhere and insert audio, and it's just going to start recording just like that. Let's see, where did I put it? And it's going to start recording an audio clip so that your students can answer the question orally. So when I'm going back to grade this particular thing, I could actually just listen to their oral answer instead of them having to write it. So another good feature for accommodations. The very last step is for the class to share ideas about what do you think we should investigate next, and post some more questions in our next collaborative document. And this is just part of propagating that driving question board. So these questions, you could either organize them yourself and present them to the students the next day, or you could have the students put them in groups and try to organize the questions however you want to structure your driving question board, and then you could make that document available for everybody. So that is just one way of changing a lesson up to make it work in a digital environment. You could use just a little bit of this, or you could use you could do it completely digitally, or you could just do some things in the traditional setting and some things on the digital document. It is really up to you, and I do hope that helps.
Did you ever see anything so beautiful in your whole life?
I wanted to show you a few of the features on the control bar that I thought were really neat, and I didn't know that they were there. The stickers is I can see being very helpful when you're grading papers. If you wanted to give some feedback and make things a little more personal, you can actually click on a sticker and you can customize it to say what you want it to say. Then another thing that they have is the researcher. If the students are doing research, they don't even have to leave OneNote to do their research. And you can see it pulls up a lot of journal articles. And if I wanted to click on one, then they could read that, and they can open it in the browser. It gives them the citation information for that article, which is very, very cool. Another thing that is really neat is that Click down here. If I wanted to add a quiz, a Microsoft form, all I have to do is click on forms, and it's actually going to pull up all the forms in your account. And let's say I wanted to add a quiz here. All I have to do is click on it, and it embeds that form directly into your document. A few other neat features that I wanted to show you are the math feature. If you highlight your, I'm going to go and draw and select, well, I'm going to just use the lasso here. I'm going to select these numbers and I'm going to hit math, and it will pull them up over here on the side, and you can do some various, you can add them all up, you can take the mean. We do a lot of averaging and that sort of thing in my class, so that is actually a very helpful feature. Just to show you some other ones, let's do that one. It will graph it for you if that was something you needed. We'll do this one. Hit math, evaluate. So lots of neat features there if you're doing any kind of equations and stuff in your classroom. Another thing is ink to text. Let's say I wrote this on an iPad or someone did and I can't read it. You can do this ink to text and it will change it into writing that you can actually read. That's cool. Another thing is that they have different kinds of paper. You can change the color of the paper. You can also make it look like real notebook paper with different size lines, and you can do different kinds of graph paper for graphing. And then finally, what I wanted to show you is the translator. Not really something that I need in my class, but you never know. Let's say that I do that, and I'm going to go to View, Translate, and it will hopefully translate it for me. Haha. So anyway, just some other features that they have in OneNote.
I suppose the most obvious question is,
How can students access OneNote to complete their assignments?
Can the notebook be shared with parents? What format is best to use when students answer questions or complete an assignment?
How can I use OneNote to teach and model problems for students?
What ways are students able to turn in work?
What devices can be used with OneNote?
Are there differences among the device-specific versions of OneNote?
How can students access OneNote?
It shows other students logged in when a student logs in.
What is going on? The pages are not showing up.
When students ask the teacher questions in the collaboration space, what are ways that teachers can respond?
How can I have students complete a peer review without others knowing whose work it is?
How can I make a link to another page in the notebook?
How can OneNote be used to meet accommodations?
How can teachers provide feedback to students?
Best way to add seating charts and other teacher information in OneNote.
How can I add or delete students from OneNote?
Do I need internet access to use OneNote?
And I added photos in OneNote.
Can I make a custom-sized table?
can students insert pictures in the collaboration space to share work? Can I copy or move multiple sections or pages at one time?
Can I copy or move sections and pages to student folders or other notebooks entirely?
Can I add the same page to different sections, such as adding the same page to class sections in the collaboration space?
Can I embed video without an embed code?
When I copy to or from Microsoft Word, the format does not save. What is the best way to print OneNote pages?
Teacher Master Notebook.
Where'd you have your stuff?
This is a notebook just for the teacher. If you can house your lesson plans, content, assignments, answer keys, etc. You can copy anything from this into a class notebook.
How to create a Teacher Master Notebook.
Step 1. Sign into Office 365 through your Launchpad or portal.office.com or cpsb.org. Step 2. Go to a place in OneDrive that you want to save your teacher notebook. Step 3. Create a Teacher Master Notebook. You will click New at the top, then click OneNote Notebook, and then I name it the name of the subject that I teach.
Sweet.
Adding assignments to the master notebook.
You'll click Add a New Page, and then whatever you title that page is going to be the page name where it shows up in the column. Tips. It is easiest to add PDFs and images in the app, either on the iPad or on the computer app. Word documents can be added as an attachment. I would most likely copy everything from the document and paste it onto the page. That way you can make tables and stuff. If you have questions you want students to answer, it's easiest to put them in a table format. That way you have the questions on one side, their answers on the other. And PDFs can be dropped onto the page as a printout, and they can type over it.
Embedding content.
You can add a YouTube link and the video will show right on the page. However, at school, student accounts cannot access YouTube. And so you can put the video as an MP4 or an MOV in OneDrive, copy the link, and put it in OneNote for the students to view the video. Make sure you have the settings on their right. PDFs. You can insert a PDF as a printout or an attachment document to download. I use the printouts so that it's visible on the page. They don't have to click or download anything. Also, if you add it as a printout, send it to the background by right-clicking Then students can type on it to complete it. Images. Insert pictures or take pictures through the camera icon on the iPad app. I tend to use OneNote and go to Insert and click the camera to take a picture. And if you do that with students, then they won't have to delete anything from the camera roll. Tip: students can take pictures of their work for you to grade if you want to go paperless. And then you can embed other things, Sways, Excel documents, and Microsoft Forms. In our OneNote notebook, the training one, I have on how to do that.
Do you hear that? It's the winds of change.
Class notebook.
This is for the upcoming school year. It will be used with the students. I make a new one every year because it's easiest to do it that way than to try to delete them. So continuing from the master notebook, you'll open it up if you don't have it, but open it in the browser, then click Open in App.
Now, this is important.
You will need to download and install the Class Notebook add-in for the computer app. I have 2 links there, or another way to download the add-in, you go to your Office 365 apps at portal.office.com, click on the Class Notebook icon, then at the very bottom you'll click on Download the Class Notebook add-in. You should now have a Class Notebook tab at the top of the page. You're going to click Create Class Notebook. Then you'll name the notebook. I use the year and the subject name. Example would be 2021 Physical Science Student Notebook. It's easiest to make a new class notebook each year. It will walk you through the initial setup steps, so you'll have the collaboration space, the content library, and student notebooks. I call them student folders so they don't get confused. For the collaboration space, teachers can edit the content. Students can also edit the content. So this is more like a discussion, collaboration, share projects type space. The content library, teachers can edit the content. Students can only view it. So think of this as like the textbook. You're going to share teacher notes, copies of assignments, study guides, links to videos, that kind of stuff. For the student notebooks or student folder, the teacher has full control. You can delete stuff, you can move stuff, but this is where the student types. They can edit their own content, and they can't see any other student's notebooks. Only you can. I do not recommend adding other teachers because they're going to have all the rights that you have for this notebook. And so that's total control just like you have. A tip would be to add SPED teachers as students, and you can do that so that they can see what's going on in class to better aid the students and to work with you easier. You will add your student names here. I recommend typing them individually so you can make sure that you have the correct student. A tip would be to look at their middle, initial, and J campus. And sometimes after the comma from their last name, there's not a space, so you need to try it both ways if you can't find the student. This is where you will name all of the sections you want in the student folders. So I tend to delete what they have and add my own. You can click Add Section to add more, or you can click the X's on the right to remove the ones there. For tips, I name the sections Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, etc. in the content library and in their folders so that I can send the work for that unit to that place. The sections can also be deleted once you finish with them in class if a student wants to slim down their notebooks, because they can tend to take longer to open the bigger they get, like the more pictures the students have of their work in there and stuff. If you're unsure what you want, it's okay because you're able to change these sections in their folders later.
It's all part of the plan.
Here is an example that I recommend. If you aren't sure what you want to have, then just start with a Unit 1 tab in their folders. You can add more sections at any time, so just remember that. Next, they'll have you confirm with the visual preview, and so that's what your notebook's going to look like. You make sure that the sections you want are listed under the student section group. So you'll see on the left, student section group, handouts, Unit 1, Unit 2. Again, it's your preference, but I tend to do the units instead of what they populate in there. If it's good, then click Next and you'll finish setting up the notebook.
Teacher only section.
Sweet!
You will want to enable the teacher only section. So this is where teachers can store pages for future use or their reference. I copy student pages here to hold them in the units until I want to add them to the content library, because you only want to give them a little bit at a time. I also have seating charts, rosters, flip chart copies to make notes on, etc. So you'll click Manage Notebooks, and this is what you're going to do when you want to change their student sections in their folders. Then you're going to click Enable Teacher Only Section Group, and it should say enabled once you do that.
Parts of the notebook.
Okay, so here's the parts of the notebook. This is a good visual to show students, and I do have handouts to give them and stuff in our Science OneNote training notebook. So you should see the collaboration space. This is to use if you want students to be able to collaborate with each other. You can lock it and you can delete it. I don't recommend deleting it because it's really hard to get it back, if you can even get it back sometimes. Then you have the content library. That's where the class documents, notes, and copies of assignments are. It's read only. That's the teacher edits. Then there's going to be a list of student folders once you add the students. That is where students can type and complete assignments. The biggest problem they have when being able to type, if they say, I can't type in it, it won't let me do my assignment, usually they're in the content library, not in their folders. That's where they need to be. The good thing about OneNote is fully digital. You can access this notebook, and students can access this notebook online,
the internet,
from anywhere on any device. So it goes with them. They don't have to carry a binder home. It's there.
Main parts of the class notebook tab.
So this is your teacher controls. When you want to send out assignments, when you want to review work, when you want to add or remove students, that type of thing. Distribute pages, that's how to send work to the student folders. Review student work, that's how you log and grade work. Add remove students, that's where you're going to add them or remove them if they move. And then manage notebooks, that's to make changes to the notebook, the student sections, turn on teacher only section, etc. Remember that master notebook that you made? You can copy pages from that master notebook into the class notebook. For the master notebook, that's your main thing. That's your brain. That's your teacher binder. You'll want to copy things from that into each year into the teacher only section. So to do that, you can right click on the page, select copy, then go to the content library, right click there in the pages column and select paste. For the iPad, it's a little different. You'll click the title and hold until you see the screen change. Then you're going to click the little square with the arrow in it. That's to copy or move. You're just going to want to click copy, so that way you have it in two different parts of the notebook.
Send an assignment or page to students.
To send an assignment or page to students, you're going to go to the class notebook tab. With the assignment page open, then you're going to click distribute page. Now you'll have different options. Distribute page is for all students. Individual distribution is for specific students only. So if you wanted to send it to certain kids with some changes, or if you wanted to differentiate and send out this page to only specific students, you can do that. Usually I just use distribute page. After that, then you'll click done. It might take a little bit, but it will send it to them. I recommend sending it out the day before to avoid syncing issues.
Locking and grading.
The first step is to click Review Student Work. Second step, you'll click a page. So only the pages the teacher distributed will show up unless you click and turn this on. It's something new. It says include student pages assigned from the content library. So if they copy it over or something like that, they renamed it for some reason, which tell them not to do that, you'll need to turn that on. Then you'll click next for 3. 4, you're gonna turn on the lock pages option. 5, once it is locked, you will see it marked by the student's name. You're going to see a little lock that's closed. Tips. It's best if the teacher distributes the pages to be graded. That way there's not multiple names. Students should add their name to the assignment. At the very top, I put a name option. This makes it easier to recover in case of accidental deletion. As a teacher, you can go and recover it. Remove the assignment page from the content library after the due date and after locking, or students can copy it to their folders and pretend that they did it before the due date and that it was your mistake. When a page is locked, the student cannot edit it in their folder any longer. So as soon as you turn that on, that's like them turning in their paper. If you want to allow a student to make changes, you will need to unlock the page first. You can do this on the computer or the app or the iPad app, anywhere. Once they are finished, then lock it back. Make sure you lock the page before grading, or the student can delete what you add. They can also add to the page and claim it was always there. In that case, you can check the history too. I grade their work using an Apple Pencil. It's easiest for adding feedback, and my handwriting cannot be replicated easily.
Sample items for the content library.
So for the content library, remember this is like the textbook where you put stuff that students can see. I always put copies of the assignments in case they delete a question for some reason on their assignment page in their folder. They can go back and copy and paste it back in or look at it. You can put picture instructions, and so I put screenshots and write on them. It helps them to see a visual versus just typing out the instructions. When I teach, I put the class notes, so you can put JPEGs or a PDF of your PowerPoint or flip chart, but I will put that in there and then use my Apple TV to project it, and so they can see as I'm writing in OneNote. They can also have it open on their iPad at their desk, and they can see me writing. At the end of the day, I will save my teacher notes in the content library for those that were absent, or if a student needs a review or refresh because they forgot something, I keep them in there. I have the agenda, so each day I put what we do in class, any homework, upcoming due dates, tests, notifications, and then I have a section for links that we use that day as well, so they can get to it multiple places. You can put links in videos, and so what's neat with YouTube, you can actually paste the link there and it will pop up the video so they can actually watch it in the notebook as long as they're at home or somewhere that's not blocked. I also put study guides to help them study for their test.
Oh my, that's lovely that is.
Sample types of student assignments.
these are sample assignments that students did or that I put in there to have them complete. And so if they make an infographic in PowerPoint, they can save it as a JPEG or a PDF and drop it right in on their assignment page with the rubric right next to it. And that's how I grade it. You can put lab stations, so you don't have to print them out and put all these things together to make into a folder for them to do that kind of lab. You can put it all there, and then if they're absent or if they didn't finish for some reason or if they have accommodations and need extended time, it's there. They don't have to ask you for it. I'll do research assignments where I have links or different information and they have to answer the questions. You can do a comparison, and so like a before picture and after picture. They have to describe what happened and summarize what's going on related to the content. You can have exit tickets in there. They can provide explanations. They can take pictures of their work or their papers and put it in there. There are some students that prefer to write on paper because they don't like typing, especially on their phones. That is totally fine. I tell them, as long as you can see the assignment, you can write it on paper, bring it the next day, or go ahead and take a picture at home. But if you bring it the next day, we can take a picture in class and put it in OneNote because that's where I'm going to grade it. Another awesome thing about this, you can bring your iPad or your computer to conferences and show parents the students' work. So you don't have to gather graded papers and all that. It's there. You just pull it open, and at that time I tend to show them how everything is organized and that the kids can see what's going on in class in the agenda tab, that there's copies of assignments, teacher notes, study guides, that kind of thing. You can show them, hey, I gave your child this amount of time, these many days to complete this assignment, and they didn't even start it. That's why they're failing. You know, that kind of information helps, and it's all in one place. There's so much you can do with OneNote. You can add audio clips, personalize pages, so you can make a graph paper background on the actual page. You can create tags for you and your students to use. They're searchable, and so the students can use the question tag, and you can go and search through that and find the questions on their assignments. There's also an immersive reader. Whatever you type there, if you go through the steps, or the student goes through the steps, it will read it to them and highlight each word as it's being read. And there's so much more that you can do. It's super convenient.
Go crazy.
You've changed things. Forever. There's no going back.
Now that you've seen the second video in our webinar series, let's talk about the tech assignment for OneNote. For this assignment, we're only going to ask that you create 2 notebooks. One of them is going to be your teacher master notebook. The other one will be your classroom notebook. See the link below to see what's included in each of those notebooks. If you're going to need a little help setting up your master notebook or your classroom notebook, you can see the video tutorials for each step. You can also check out the sample science notebook. In that notebook, there's tons of tutorials on how to do all of these tasks on the checklist. Whenever you visit the face-to-face in-service, we're going to review your notebooks and also offer support if you had a little trouble setting them up. Feel free to send us your questions. You can email me or one of the in-service team members with your questions.
Alrighty then.
Oh yeah, that's about it.
Good luck. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.